for, of course, as constituents. So if you have questions, I'll be calling them in order. We'll be giving the candidates 3 to 4 minutes at the outset to introduce themselves to you, and then we will move through right to questions and begin there. If you have not signed up for a question and we get through the list, certainly the mic is open. We do not want to put any limits on questions. All I ask as moderator is that questions be asked in good faith. We've all been on the other side of what that looks like, and this is not the forum for that. And despite my looks, I think I might be one of those Antifa wine mommies they're talking about on Fox today, so I will shut it down if we have any issues. So Rob Strickler has asked that we rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Did I miss anything? I want to introduce everyone first because this is new. We have not, primary is in May. We're getting an early start, which is a good sign for democracy. We have Tracy Hunt, Lucia Simonelli, and Rob Strickler. They are running for Congress against Brian Fitzpatrick, who I would think most everyone in the room wants to see not get elected again. Okay, so 3 or 4 minutes to introduce yourself, and we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order. So that means Strickler. Mr. Rob Strickler, you are first.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you for moderating this event. Thank you for everybody who put this together, and thank you all for coming out tonight. We all agree, Tracy, Lucia, and I, that it's a good thing to do this together. It's a good thing to have all the candidates together so we can all answer the same questions. You can get answers from all of us at one time. For those of you who don't know, I was born down in Lower Bucks. I grew up in Levittown, Fairless Hills. I went to Pennsbury High School. I married my high school sweetheart, who's back there enjoying the pretzel right now. And we have built a really wonderful life for ourselves here in Bucks County. So we just retired a while ago. And retired a year ago, and it's been great. I'm semi-retired, which kind of enables me to do something like this. I am running for office without getting into too many details as to why I'm running. I'm primarily running because I'm an American citizen. I am concerned, that's putting it too mildly, I'm afraid for our democracy and our republic. You all know what's going on, I assume, no matter where you are on the spectrum, whether you like it or not. In my opinion, we are in danger of losing our democracy and our civil rights. You don't have to look much further than what happened to that woman in Minnesota. And I'm running in hopes of making things better for working class people. So much so that they will never again turn to a race-baiting demagogue like Donald Trump. I think in large part, that's why he got elected. He was able to demonize immigrants instead of billionaires and corporations that were controlling Congress, buying themselves congressmen and presidents and getting the policies that they want without caring about what regular working people in Pennsylvania's 1st District want and need, in America at large. If we just follow the Constitution, that will make, I'm fumbling for words, I'm sorry. That will ensure that everybody enjoys the blessings of liberty and the general welfare. Not just the wealthy people, which we've allowed this to go on for the past 50, 60 years. It's far too long. We have to end that and get money out of our elections. Once again, I thank you for showing up, and I'll be happy to take your questions when the time comes.
Thank you, Ron. Ms. Lucia Simonelli.
Hello, everyone, and to echo Rob, thank you for coming out. It takes a village to put this on, so thank you for everyone who has helped. And thank you to Rob and Tracy, who have really shown what it means that you can be both supportive and competitive, and this can be a very healthy primary. I want to start with the idea of patriotism. Patriotism in the United States is something that is often presented as a given or an expectation. It's something that I've struggled with. Because what is patriotism when your country continues to commodify the human right that is healthcare? What is patriotism when my country gives hundreds of billions of dollars to an industry that seeds disinformation and blocks real action on the humanitarian and affordability crisis that is climate change? What is patriotism when my country directs almost $1 trillion to an agency that has never passed a full audit, that violates international law, and we strip veterans of their benefits and dismantle foreign aid? What is patriotism when my country is violently going after my family and friends and colleagues who are part of the immigrant community that is the lifeblood of our nation? Because they've been used as scapegoats for the real reasons that we have things like crime and financial insecurity. And those reasons are a system and a tax code and a regulatory structure that rewards the greed of oligarchs who are fueled by repression and inequality. But the irony maybe is that I found my patriotism within the very government that I blame for so much. I found patriotism in the halls of Congress when I worked in the United States Senate because I felt the power that is our legislative process. It's the culmination of a relay from the voter to the elected official to the process of creating policy that has the promise and the potential to fix so much of what has made me question pride in my own country. But when someone like Representative Fitzpatrick gets confused about who he serves, when he only stands up for us in the moments where he feels his grip on power slip, he disrespects us and he breaks democracy. I'm running for office because my patriotism has become the active pursuit to protect the process that has given me hope and to restore power to Congress, our first branch of government, and the House of the people. Thank you.
Mr. Tracy Hunt.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having the three of us here and for coming out, as Kim mentioned. So my name's Tracy Hunt. I have been living in Bucks County for about 30 years now. I'm originally from North Carolina, but I met my wife in school, and she was from Bucks County, and I found myself living here. So it's a beautiful community. I've lived here for over 30 years between Doylestown and New Hope. I am an attorney. I've been an attorney in Bucks County for about 27 years. And I've been a university professor. I'm a tenured full professor at Delaware Valley University, where I've taught business law for over 20 years there as well. I'm a member of the United Way of Bucks County Board of Directors, and a combination of being on that board and watching sort of what's been transpiring, arguably for the last 10 years, but certainly since January of this year. I did a lot of soul searching in terms of, is there something I can do? Have I developed skill sets or anything that can help this situation? And so, in doing that, I touched on my upbringing. as I said, I grew up in North Carolina. My father is a command sergeant major in the 82nd Airborne. He was 30 years in the Army. I don't want to talk about him in past tense. He'll turn 86 in March. He's still there. He's still in Fayetteville, right outside of Fort Bragg. You know, he did 2 tours in Vietnam, 4 Bronze Stars. He's literally the real deal when it comes to what you think about, you know, to use Lucia's word, you know, think about a patriot, right? He's an old farm boy from Oklahoma who made a career out of the Army. And my mother grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and her father, my grandfather, was a U.S. steel worker, worked at a zinc mill across the street from the house they grew up in. And so, you know, as I've gone through my life, I've realized that there's, you know, I've been offered some gifts and some advantages, and I've learned some stuff over these years. And as I sat there really getting frustrated and mad, you know, and angry and fearful, as Rob was talking about, you know, I thought about what my father would say, which is, you know, either do something or shut the hell up. And so I decided that I was going to throw my hat in the ring. What has motivated me is I'm just so distraught by the amount of divisiveness in our society. It's certainly within politics, but it's permeated into our society over the last 10 years. And it's terrible, right? It's not just, you know, it's culturally divisive now, it's politically divisive, and it's even within the respective political parties out there. There's a lot of blame to go around. And that's not what we're supposed to be, right? It's we the people. And I think one of the common threads you're going to see is Lucia and Rob and I, you know, it's a democracy thing, right? We have a constitution, we have this phenomenal democracy that, you know, almost 250 years ago, our founding fathers put together for us. And we're letting establishment politicians, in my mind, we're letting establishment politicians take that away from us. They're taking our voice away from us. This is our government, not theirs. And that's where my frustration lies. And again, mine, and you'll hear that tonight, lies with both parties to some extent, right? The Republican Party I don't consider a political party anymore. They have gone off the cliff into an authoritarian regime. But within the Democratic Party, and that's why I joined it, it's a big tent. And so I'm hopeful that my message as a modern Democrat, and you'll hear me using that tonight, and I have a handout sheet about that. My lane in here is that I'm a litigator. I spent 25 years litigating cases. I can be very strategic, and I know how to work my way through it. So my hope is that you will give me an opportunity to explain that to you tonight. You'll take one of my sheets, and you'll consider me for the Democratic primary when it comes to May. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. All right, we're going to get to our questions. I have a list of people who have signed up. If you have not signed up, that is perfectly fine. We'll get through this list, and then we will open the mic to those who have signed up. I will call you up in the order in which you have signed up. And the first question we're going to do round robin is actually going to go back to Tracy. So the question is from Paul, and it is regarding electability. The question is, what makes you think you can beat Brian Fitzpatrick, who, despite his voting record, portrays himself as a centrist acceptable to all?
Okay, great. Thank you, Paul. And actually that fits right in where I was wrapping up at. Some of you know this, some of you do not. I was a registered Republican. I've changed parties. I said why I did. Looking at this strategically, which is how I've looked at this before I've gotten into it. I've done a lot of due diligence before I threw my hat in the ring here. There's, as some of you may know, some of you may not, there's 85,000 unaffiliated or independent voters just in Bucks County. This does not even include the sliver of Munco that we're in right now. In the 2024 election that Brian Fitzpatrick won, these were 85,000 people who voted in that 2024 election. That made up 20% of the total votes in that election. And if you think about it, there's nobody winning, even with Brian winning multiple terms, he's never won by more than 20%. Right? But 20% of the voters in 2024 were independents or unaffiliated. There's only a 10,000 voter difference between the Republicans and the Democrats in Bucks. with 10,000 more Republicans. Those 85,000 will decide this election. Again, I urge you to read my sheet on Modern Democrat, but I am a former Republican. I'm familiar with that world. I've interacted with those people over my 25 years. I embraced all of the Democratic policies that are out there. But I can go to those 85,000 and I don't have an agenda. I don't have a 15-year Democratic voting record to have to answer to. I can talk with them, in a very similar position that I'm in. And I think that will resonate. And frankly, with all due respect to the establishment Democratic Party in Bucks County at least, they've put up 4 candidates. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And in my opinion, that's what they're doing again. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to go Rob for the same question. If you need to repeat it, always let me know.
The question was, why do I think I'll beat Brian Fitzpatrick?
Yes, especially for him as a very successfully presenting centrist.
Centrist, yes. Well, we know that's not really true. Whether people, you can convince people in the district that is true about Fitzpatrick, I think I can. Because, first of all, running as an outsider, someone who's never held public office and never had any ambition to hold public office, I can credibly stand up in front of people where I grew up, or in the central part of Bucks County, or in Horsham, where my wife and I lived for 10 years. I can talk to people and tell them, I've been an independent, I've been a Democrat, I've been a Republican, I came back to being a Democrat. I've been a Democrat now for 11 years, and I can say to them, to me, a political party should be like a jacket you wear. It should fit you. You should be able to, it should, fit your style, so to speak. And if it doesn't fit anymore, take it off. I'm running as an independent who is running as as a Democrat because I believe, as the party establishment of both parties, obviously, are just seen as not working for people. Most of the people I know have had it with the party establishment, and they want people from the outside to run for office. People like Graham Plattner up in Maine, people like Kat Abigail out in Illinois. There really is a movement in this country looking for people who have not been part of a party for 20, 30 years, who will not vote the way the party wants them to vote, but will vote in a way that, come hell or high water, I'm going to work for you, my fellow Americans, working class Americans, and nobody else.
Thank you. Lucia?
If Representative Fitzpatrick calls himself a centrist, then centrist is synonymous with spineless and not knowing where you stand. To beat someone like Fitzpatrick, we don't need to try to be like him. We need to show people why we're different.
Yes.
And I think it will be echoed across this panel, but running for office without the backing of an establishment party is hard. But there is a silver lining. And one thing is that I don't have a party or a consultant telling me what to say or how to say it. The tools we have are the tools of listening to people and talking to people, and that will inform our platform and our stances. And I think that's how you win.
Thank you, Lucia. Next on the list with a question about the economy is Mr. Wes Combs.
Okay, I am Wes Combs, and I'm speaking as a progressive independent Democrat of Bucks County. I have 3 points that I would like to ask each of you to speak to tonight. And the first one is, in the past election cycles, Democrats have engaged in what has been known as the circular firing squad. Vicious attacks on others that alienate and deactivate voters. How will you as a candidate keep your campaign maintaining a civil posture on social media and in the press and public forums while pointing out your strengths? And this also includes the candidate that isn't present tonight. Lion Brian has given you all the fodder you need. Point 2 is, what steps are you ready to take to help working families with the cost of goods, groceries, health care, and to get Americans on the path to national or universal health care that's been proven to work in Canada and the EU? And thirdly, what are your proposals or moves, and how will you resist establishment pressure to reestablish the rule of law, remove the fascist mobster regime from our government, and will you speak the power?
Thank you, Wes. I wrote them down. I think,
Okay.
well, I'm happy to take them if you would like to have them. Lucia, you are up first on this one, and I'll remind you all, because that was a multi-tiered question. Thank you, Wes. Yeah, well, we can make this one 3 minutes if we need to. So Democratic kind of history of running, and then we went into universal health care, and then we went into, resisting the pressure of the establishment within the current regime. Wes, tell me if I got that wrong. All right. There we go.
Okay, 3 minutes, let's go.
Yeah, let's go 3 minutes on this one.
Okay, to start, I think we avoid the circular firing squad if we focus on issues. And there is enough to talk about with respect to issues right now that we don't have to get personal, and there's no need to get personal. So, committed to a primary that is issue focused. The second, affordability across the board.
Universal health care and affordability.
University, yes. Okay, let's start with healthcare. There's no reason why we as a party should not capitalize in this moment when so many people are facing our broken healthcare system. I am talking with family that I've never talked before about politics with, and we're talking about universal healthcare right now. This is the moment, because people are tired of these Band-Aid fixes, these extensions that are maybe successes today, but in 3 years, failures again. There are steps to take towards Medicare for all, if we can't get there quite yet. There is a bill that's been introduced where it's Medicare for all for states, where states can submit to a waiver program and establish their own universal healthcare system, so that the states who are willing right now are laboratory spaces to show people how Medicare for all can work for everyone. Affordability, there are so many levers that need to be pulled. I want to focus on electricity prices. Electricity prices are skyrocketing. We are on the same grid as Virginia, the state with the most number of data centers. And we have now in the neighboring county, in Bucks County, in my county, approved and are building a data center. Before we understand how to assess ratepayer protections, before we've made investment in transmission infrastructure and upgrades, and before we have invested in clean and cheap energy. The cheapest form of energy is utility scale solar and onshore wind, not new natural gas plants. So we need to start talking about smart energy policy, even if that's not what the short-term politically attractive solution might look like.
And the last question was, what are your proposals or moves, and how will you resist establishment pressure to wait or delay movement, to take democracy back, establish the rule of law, and remove fascist mobster regime from our government? I like the word mobster. Thanks for that.
Yes, thanks. It's a great phrase. I'm a mathematician by training. I'm trained to be objective. I'm trained to be a problem solver and a critical thinker. I have to think for myself, and I'm not running with party backing. So I commit to making decisions based on my value system and according to the wise community that I surround myself by. Sorry, thank you.
No, no need to apologize, just trying to give you the high sign. Okay, next up, we will have Tracy.
All right. In an effort to sort of streamline this and get through my 3 minutes, I'm going to combine a little bit of this with the first question, I think, which was about the circular firing squad, and maybe the last, which deals with
standing up to establishment pressure within the regime if you are elected.
right. Well, there was some affordability stuff in there, right?
Affordability was in the middle of
Okay.
this sandwich.
So I'll put this answer out there, and then we'll see how many parts I answered. So my view of this is that the role that we're running for here is lawmaker. Right? Call them House of Representatives, members of Congress, but at the heart, it's lawmaking. Right? That is the legislative branch's role. In my capacity over the last 27 years, I've represented a number of townships throughout Bucks County, and I have written their statutes and ordinances and regulations. I've interpreted them for them. I've litigated them for them. I've told them they can't do this unless they want to get sued. You know, I've done all of those types of things. So I'm familiar with the role of what lawmaking is about. I believe that is a huge part of both the first answer, which is I intend to talk about the ideas that I have. And again, I'll point to that Modern Democrat page, what I intend to do and how I believe you can push back on the Republican regime in terms of the way they have been operating. It's really kind of stunning how they've operated. I'm not admiring it in any way, but it's been somewhat effective. It has been shock and awe that they have jammed it through. So I believe lawmaking is the answer to that. As for the campaign, I will say this. I would have no desire to do that. I intend to talk about what I can do as a lawmaker and what I would propose as a lawmaker. That being said, I am the son of a command sergeant major, and I will defend myself. So if there are attacks coming, I cannot promise that I will not respond. With regards to fascism, I would probably echo some of what Lucia is talking about. I'm a fiercely independent person. I've had to represent clients over the years. I've gone into situations where it was an unpopular situation. I do not relent. If I have a mission, I get that mission done. And so I can tell you one of my campaign promises that I've like etched in stone already is that if a 800-page omnibus bill hits my desk with 72 hours to vote on it, I don't care who's bringing it in the door, it's a no. It will be a no no matter who brings it. If King Jeffrey brings it, it's a no. Right? If Frederick Muhlenberg, the original Speaker of the House in Congress, comes up, it's a no. So I'm not going down that road. I won't go to that. As for affordability, I believe the lawmaker role plays a role in that as well. I would support, first of all, increasing the federal income tax. Increasing the federal minimum wage. Right? It is woefully low, which, by the way, not that this role has anything to do with Pennsylvania necessarily, but Pennsylvania's is woefully low. It's embarrassing. Every state around us is in double digits. We're still at the federal minimum wage. I believe attacking healthcare premiums and making insurance healthcare companies responsible will help lower cost as well. There's a number of ways to try to make things a little bit more affordable. They're not going to just lower prices by themselves. You're going to have to motivate people to do it. Thank you.
I have a feeling we'll be hearing about economy again. So Rob, this question from Wes is up to you. Do you need a refresher?
I do need a refresher.
Democratic circular firing squads. How are we going to avoid that during the primary? Affordability and healthcare is the second piece. And part 3 is, how are you going to resist any establishment pressure to maybe go with the flow instead of standing up for the people's rights and speaking truth, true power, which I noticed you wrote on that.
Well, I guess regarding the first question, in a fair primary, there would be no need to, point out, issues with another candidate or issues with the party. But I'm not going to get too much into detail, but this has just not been a fair primary, and I need to call these issues out when they happen. I was at a committee meeting last night where the chair of the Bucks County Democratic Committee actually interrupted my talking in the middle of it because he didn't like something I said. And there's an issue with Vote Builder, a program that we use to find people to help support us. And we've been using it. It was given to us for free in October. And January 5th, they cut us off from it. Now, they've cut off the other candidates too, at least the ones who are using it. But, you know, I'll mention my name, Bob Harvie. He has a lot of money. He can afford to pay for it. We didn't put aside any money to pay for it because we thought it was free. And we were using it great. You know, last weekend, I should have been walking turf, knocking doors with volunteers who would help me gather data to help us with our voter outreach. And now we don't have that data unless we pay $6,000. Thankfully, some people are stepping up. Some committee people are stepping up to raise funds for us. I say that because I don't know Bob Harvie. He's probably a good guy, but from the beginning, every endorsement has gotten behind him and all the party power has gotten behind him. It reminds me so much of Hillary Clinton in 2016. It's so obvious that I just think it's gonna, that's why I'm running in part, is because I didn't think he could win. So I'm not going to shy away from pointing out issues with other candidates. What was the second part?
Universal health care and affordability.
And I to another thing. Yes, universal health care. If you go to my website, and I encourage you to do so, go to the issues page, I have a lot of very specific and what I think are bold ideas. The kind of bold ideas that Elizabeth Warren was just describing today or yesterday. That's how we win these elections. We have to have bold ideas and not run a conservative campaign that seems more designed to not lose than to win. Universal health care is something that we're the richest nation in the history of the planet, and 30 other advanced nations have this. We don't. The reason is insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies, all those insurance, other, well-heeled interests don't want that. So they give massive amounts of money to people running for office, and they invest all this money in PACs and super PACs just to ensure that they get the policies that they want. A donation to them is not a donation, it's an investment, and they expect a return on that investment, and they get it. If I get to Congress, I'm going to do everything I can to have a single-payer health insurance system, which is basically the government runs it. That's what Obamacare was going to be before the insurance companies got their mitts all over it. Amen. I gotta talk faster. Do I have time to answer the last question?
I apologize, you do not.
All right. What was the last question just on?
The last question was about establishment pressure once elected, to speak truth to power and stand up for the people within the regime.
Okay, well, I'm done on this. But nobody's going to tell me what to do if I get to Congress. No party, nobody, no how.
Thank you, you all. Next up is Brian Klein.
First of all, thank you to all the candidates for attending this very important forum tonight. It helps make Democratic voters, it gives us an informed decision we can make in the May primary. And hopefully you'll be having more forums in the future, and hopefully Bob Harvie will be also participating in those forums. So I had a question about electability and also about healthcare, but they were pretty much answered. So I'm going to switch to foreign policy, if that's okay. At the turn of the century, the U.S. engaged in gunboat diplomacy throughout the Caribbean and Latin America. The U.S. intervened and installed regimes friendly to U.S. corporate interests. This imperialist foreign policy was named the Monroe Doctrine. With the recent intervention in Venezuela and threats against Colombia and Cuba, are we witnessing the U.S. reverting to its imperialistic past in the Western Hemisphere?
Very interesting question. Thank you, Brian. We are going to go with Rob first.
Short answer, yes. It's ungodly, distressing to see how this administration just went into Venezuela, and again, I'm gonna revert to money in our politics, our elections. The Exxon and Chevron donated tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to get Republicans elected. Now they're getting a return on that investment. You don't have to overthink Venezuela, it's about oil. And now that it's happened, now that they've gotten rid of Maduro, why not install the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize, who won the election before? She actually won the election, but Maduro wouldn't let her take power. Put her in charge of that. Trump and his people are going to fight that because she's not going to allow them to just come in and plunder her country. She's going to stand up and say, all right, you want to get oil here? Then you're going to have to pay us a fair fee to mine us for oil. Regarding the other countries, like they're just talking about Greenland now. Can you believe that today the Danish government and British and French government are all getting together now, talking about putting their troops in the Greenland to try and deter the United States of America from just taking it over? I mean, it's great if you ask Greenland and say, do you want to be part of the United States? Would you like to be? That's fine. But the President of the United States cannot stand up there and say, we're just going to take it no matter what they want. I'm not ruling military options off the table. I mean, Canada, why insult one of our best allies ever by calling the Canadian Prime Minister the governor of the 51st state? I think that'd be wonderful, frankly, if Canada and the United States decide, why don't we form a country together, a new country, a new constitution? I think that'd be a great opportunity. But the way Trump's doing it, he's a goddamn idiot, sorry. He's an idiot. Our foreign policy, how much time? 5 seconds? All right, close the computer. Okay. I mean, he's wrecking our NATO allies. He's letting, China is going to invade Taiwan, and they're going to do it because of the way Trump runs his foreign policy. Well, I'll leave it there. He's horrific.
Tracy, are we returning to our imperialistic roots?
As Rob said, the short answer there to yes, without question. I mean, obviously they've even coined the Don Rowe doctrine nonsense, which is just juvenile. At any rate, I believe part of the problem in politics is the amount of hypocrisy, gaslighting, and straight up incompetence, and that's a sign of incompetence from them. First of all, the Monroe Doctrine. If they could have, by controlling the Western Hemisphere, you might as well have been controlling the entire globe back then because of the nature of warfare and transportation. So we live in a global economy, global on all fronts, not just financially, but in international relations. So that's an obsolete doctrine to start with because it's a global economy, period. Evidenced by how quickly we can deploy our military. Speaking as the son of somebody who has been deployed in the military, my problem with what's going on is, his just laissez-faire approach to deploying our military. I mean, these are people's, sons and daughters, and he's doing it for whatever the hell reasons he's doing it for, but you shouldn't be doing that. That is our military not there for his pleasure, and so I have a big issue with that, obviously, and I don't think that's being taken into consideration when they're deploying these things. I do believe, look, we have a right to protect our country and to make sure that we don't have nefarious people. I believe there was probably some validity to China getting into the Panama Canal too much. And if we want to push back on that, that's one thing. That's you can do that type of stuff. But I believe they have adopted gunboat diplomacy, which I think is the worst thing possible. We don't need to do that. We are a superpower. We're not some little punk on the corner trying to. We're not North Korea trying to make a name for ourselves on the global stage. We are the global stage, and we are the superpower. We should not be conducting ourselves that way. Period.
Thank you for asking that question, because I think it's often underappreciated how much foreign policy Congress decides. Congress authorizes and funds the Department of Defense within the National Defense Authorization Act, which has passed every year for the past 65 years without any holdup. That can tell you where our priorities are. They also determine the direction of foreign policy, sanctions, weapons deals. Congress can block the trade or exportation of military equipment at any time up until delivery. Congress is the body that can declare war, and only Congress. So it's very important that we get to talk about foreign policy as candidates. Between the 40s and the 90s, the United States was behind over 60 regime changes. It is important that we know that sometimes our interventions are not out of morality, but out of special interest. In the 50s, we helped topple a democratically elected leader in Iran because they wanted to nationalize their oil, and that was not in our best interest. So I do not think the question is either whether Maduro was good or bad because he was bad, or whether now there could be change or not, which there's not, but whether we should be intervening and whether we should be deciding for other people. I think the United States needs to change fundamentally how we act. We need to act with more humility and more respect, because we are part of a global system. Right now, we're bullies.
Next up, Brian Camp.
Hello, Brian Camp, Levittown. Drove all the way up here. Hi, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. First, thank you to all of the candidates. We start off with, let's say, the pledge: liberty and justice for all. Bucks County has become a national sensation. We do have a lot of power. Our current congressman is using it the wrong way, in my opinion. And my question is basically to put everything together. If elected to office, you won. You're there. It's your first day. You got your first meeting. You have all the power of Bucks County behind you. How would you hold this administration accountable while trying to help the nation heal together? Because I think that's going to be one of the big words in here, because people want direct retribution for everything that they're saying. We're not blind, okay? We know what's going on. We're using our eyes because we're here. If we weren't, we'd be someplace else. So my thing is to, if elected, what's your first thing you're going to do to hold this president, this administration accountable? How are you going to rein them in? And then, how are you going to hold these people that are doing these things? I mean, it's my Abraham Lincoln question. He was in the same conundrum. You're going to be there with the power to vote. So your legislation, your plans, all that. Now it's time to put, rubber to the road. What are you going to do? That's my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy, accountability balanced with healing a nation.
Thank you for the question, Brian, and for driving all the way up there. So obviously that is a conundrum, right? Because it is, I think healing is needed for sure. That being said, I believe that accountability outweighs that. I think if you handle accountability and you handle it transparently and with a level of fairness and something we haven't seen a lot of lately, some due process, I think that you have to hold people accountable for their actions. So that would be part of what I would be wanting to do right out of the gate. Whether that is doing articles of impeachment, or whether that is calling in some of the secretaries of some of these agencies, some of these departments, HECSEP, NOM, and things like that, and holding them to task, and either using the financial levers that Congress has to basically cut off their finances, or to put them into what would be a government version of some kind of receivership where Congress will oversee their agencies, things of that nature. But they have to be held accountable for their conduct. And I think if you don't do that, that's disrespectful to the millions of Americans who have been watching this happen. There are going to be people upset on the other side thinking that this is, he's coined the term witch hunt and he's made it apply to everything. And that's gonna be their natural knee-jerk reaction, is to go to that. So I think you have to balance, you have to make sure that you're doing it with a level of due process and transparency. And I get it, Washington is not exactly known for its transparency, but I believe that's one of the reasons why I want to run. I don't believe in back office deals and things like that. Be transparent with what you're doing, hold people accountable, and I believe people will respect that. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucia.
It's such a difficult question to balance healing and damage control. Thinking about the powers of Congress and the reality of the next 2 years, which will still be a Trump administration, I think two things come to mind in particular, legislatively. One is taking back the power of appropriations. We hold the power of the purse in the first branch. And a lot of the damage that has been done is by not putting funds where Congress told funds to go. Across agencies, this has affected people's lives. I have so many friends who have been fired in the scientific community. So one thing is appropriate funds to our important programs that help people and make sure the funds get used in the way that Congress says they should be used. That leads me to my second point, which is oversight. Congress has the power of oversight over the executive branch. So Congress people need to hold every agency accountable to make sure that it's following the law and doing what Congress has told it to do. The last thing I'll say is that it is, and this is hard for me to say because I am a rule follower generally, but it is the time right now that we need to break norms. We have to learn a little bit what the Republicans have done, because they have done a lot of things that we thought were not allowed, but they still did. And we're gonna have to do a little bit of that now to take our own power back.
Rob?
Yes. So Brian, thank you for that question, and Lucia is right. I mean, it's difficult to balance healing versus accountability. This is a time for accountability. I'm sorry. I want to have the healing, but we have to have accountability. Getting to accountability, flipping this seat and flipping the House to control the Democrats is a start. And they can start using their power to try and block this agenda. And I mean that, block this agenda. This is an autocratic, authoritarian agenda. Let's be clear about that. Supporting a government that is marching us to dictatorship is not something that Congress should be doing. Ideally, we would get the Senate back. I don't know that that's going to happen. You asked me what I will do on the first day. I want to do everything I can. If I can work with some Republicans and get some good things for working class Americans, I'll do that. But on the first day, I'm going to sign my name to just about any impeachment article that's out there. I'm going to write up my own impeachment articles. My understanding is a Senate trial for impeachment, there is no double jeopardy. So Trump can be impeached for J6, which is the one thing most of all I think he should be impeached for. I mean, Brian Fitzpatrick called that evening, after he fled for his life and these officers defended him, that evening he said it was nothing short of a coup attempt and the president owns responsibility for that. If you should impeach a president for anything, it's a coup attempt. But Fitzpatrick wouldn't vote to impeach Trump a week later. He wouldn't do that. And the thing is, if he had voted for impeachment, he was impeached by the Congress, it went over to the Senate real quick, and they, of course, blocked it. What Fitzpatrick should have done is stood up and said, hey, Senate, I voted for it to impeach him. Either you guys vote to convict this guy and also vote to let him never hold public office again, which they can do, or I'm not a Republican anymore. Because the Republican Party stands for nothing but Donald Trump. We all know that's true. So I want to heal, but we have to have accountability.
Thank you, Rob. James Donnelly.
How you guys doing? My name's James. I'm a content creator from Ben Salem. My only real question is posed to everyone here is, number one, why isn't Bob Harvie here tonight? And number two, do you also agree that in the primary process was not done correctly? It should be left to all of you. And would you agree that he is an entitled elitist?
That's a tough question, man. Y'all want me to let you off the hook on that one or no? To get out of the weeds a little bit. I mean, I'd like to let you guys talk about this for sure. But I would like to note, as a Democratic chairperson, right? I am technically part of the Bucks County Democrats. I think I know enough to say that there is a process to run for any office, and that includes a primary petition process. That process this year starts on February 17th and runs through March 10th. If those of you who aren't familiar, you are allowed to sign petitions for any candidate to be on the ballot in the primary. However, you may only sign for the number of positions that are open. So we only have one position open for Congress here. You may sign for one primary candidate. This was, I believe, one of the reasons the candidates wanted to get out early. Obviously, they are not the brand name, if you will, of the Democratic Party, and they do need assistance in getting the word out, getting signatures for their petitions to become formal candidates. I'll talk about that again. I'm going to remind you all about that because we're going to want you to sign up for notifications lists for these candidates whom you like, so that you can be aware when they're circulating petitions and they can come to you and get your signature if you so choose. That's where I'm going to leave it. There is a thought that you are not formally a candidate until you have submitted your petitions and they are accepted by the Board of Elections and I'm sorry, it's not the Board of Elections. It's way higher than that for Congress. There is an idea that you're not a candidate technically before that. Bob Harvie did express his interest in participating in forums once official candidacies are in place for these. That said, I'm going to turn it over to Lucia to go first.
Thank you for asking about primaries because I think they are critically important. In a race where we have yet to beat the incumbent, who is very strong, it seems like a very smart move to use this few months that we have to test different voices and strategies and give people a choice. Because to beat someone like Fitzpatrick, we need to create excitement. And if we create excitement now, we have a stronger unity behind whoever the candidate is after May 19th. I also think we make each other better. We get to hear ideas and exchange ideas. And so the reason I'm disappointed that Bob Harvie is not here is because I think we can all benefit from having a forum like this one. I don't want to speak to, I don't know Bob personally. I've heard he's a very nice person. I think that I haven't been a part of the Democratic establishment locally. I've worked at the federal level, but I have not worked locally with the Democratic Party, so I can't expect them to support me right out of the gate. What I would like to see is the chance to earn that support, and I would like to see the people have the choice in May. So one thing I would say that is a little odd to me in terms of the process is that the party endorses a candidate during the petition period. So before we know who's on the ballot, they endorse a candidate, and that's a little over 2 months before the actual primary happens. So I think I would just question the utility of that endorsement, and maybe given that we are facing kind of historic disillusionment in the Democratic Party, maybe this is a time that we embrace choice and we let people feel like they are truly part of the process. and let the people decide in May.
Yes.
Rob, you are next.
I'll echo what Lucia said. We should have no endorsement. We should have an open primary. We should hear from working class men and women voters, Democratic voters, registered Democratic voters in the district, including Horsham, voting and saying who they want to be their champion against Brian Fitzpatrick. Now, in the off chance that they pick one of us, imagine, you talk about excitement, that will be national news. If I win the primary because we didn't have an endorsement process and all the voters in Bucks County, the Democrats said Rob Strickler is our guy, that's going to be an upset like Davy and Goliath. And obviously the Democratic Party will give money to that candidate to run, but other people will support that candidate as well, and it's going to be a huge deal. If Bob Harvie is the candidate, it's just going to be another Democrat running for office. He's been part of the party for like 20, 25 years, and that's great, that's wonderful. There's actually nothing wrong with that, but in today's environment, there's nothing good about that either. I mean, unless he really can distinguish himself and say, I'm going to take on Trump and I'm going to do this and that, and puts out bold ideas, but he hasn't put any bold ideas out there. If you go to his website, what is there? There's nothing but vague ideas about the American dream, which is wonderful. How are you going to restore that? Go to my website, to the issues page. You're going to see, I believe, bold ideas with specifics on how we're going to get there. So I guess I'll leave it there. I kind of forgot everything you asked, to be honest with you.
Is he entitled to lead us?
Whether he's entitled or not, he's obviously the establishment candidate. He's getting all the support and endorsements that, frankly, he shouldn't have from the chairs of the parties in both Montgomery and Bucks County. It's really obvious.
Thank you, Rob. Tracy?
Well, I'm clearly not going to deviate too far from this, because obviously you see the three of us are here. And we did invite Bob. So, and Kim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you said the petition started on February 17th, right? And the BCDC endorsement meeting is on February 21st, right?
That is my understanding.
Yeah. So the Bucks County Democratic Committee will endorse a candidate on February 21st. However, we can't start collecting petitions till February 17th and getting signatures. So you tell me, I'm not sure how open that's going to be. I know my campaign, as well as Rob and Lucia's, have been reaching out to various local Democratic committees. And there's about 26 or so that we reached out to. I will tell you that about a third responded to me, to our campaign. And they've invited me. I will say that I reached out to them in anticipation of this event, because we had a flyer, which I'm sure many of you saw, and asked them if they would put it on their Facebook page. Almost all of them said they would. Honestly, very few of them did. That being said, they highly promoted Bob Harvie's town hall, which was last Thursday on the 8th. He had a town hall, which I wasn't invited. I don't know if these guys were invited. I know my campaign was not invited to his town hall in Middletown last Thursday. But it was highly promoted by the local Dem committees. So you can take that information for whatever it's worth. To me, it seems to be a pattern of some kind. Interestingly, last week, he and I ended up at the same Dem committee meeting in Buckingham. And so it was just me and Bob, and we had a town hall setting like this for about an hour long. And Bob is going to run the campaign Bob wants to run, and he's going to run on his platform as being a county commissioner. I do feel like there's a thumb on the scale, to be totally candid and frank. I feel like there's a thumb on the scale from the establishment. And I'm not just picking necessarily on the BCDC about that. I believe the establishment Democrats, they are protecting their own, and they've circled the wagons. So.
Thank you, Tracy. Next up for question, and apologies if I get the name wrong, Nick Burns. Nick Burns?
Hello, good evening. Thank you all for being here, for hearing our voices and our questions. So my question for the candidates here tonight, considering the numerous crimes committed by Trump, various members of his criminal administration, and assuming our current administration remains spineless to impeach him, and again, everyone who's deserving of it, once elected, will you join to help lead impeachment efforts in the House and work to abolish ICE and work to establish new Nuremberg trials for the fascists in our streets terrorizing our fellow citizens? Once all criminals are removed from government, what are your top 3 policy goals you will all fight for? Thank you.
Rob, you're first.
Yes, I think I said before, impeachment will be maybe the first order of business. When a president does things for which he should be impeached, we must impeach. That's what the founders intended. That's what James Madison intended. James Madison is known as the father of the Constitution for a reason, for all the things he did to develop it. I mean, James Madison actually had a conversation with somebody during the ratification process in Virginia for the Constitution about what if a president abuses his pardon power. Somebody was concerned about that and said, why should we give this pardon power to a president? It's like something you give a king. Madison said that the remedy for abusing the pardon power is impeachment. How abusive was Trump pardoning those 1,500 people who attacked police officers? I mean, that is so deserving of impeachment in a long list of things he should be impeached for. Regarding criminal actions, I mean, we'll have to deal with that idiotic Supreme Court ruling about presidential immunity for so-called official acts. But yeah, anybody, especially people in government, who commit crimes while they're in government, they should be prosecuted for it, no doubt about it. We follow the Constitution. If we follow the Constitution, we're okay. You can amend the Constitution if it needs to be, but we would be so okay right now if during my lifetime, if we had just followed the Constitution.
I'm going to give you a little more time on this one too, because there were 2 other pieces to the question that I want to direct you to, which was abolishing ICE and what your stance is on that, and what are your top 3 legislative priorities? I think those are both important questions.
Yeah, at least the fund ICE, it's ridiculous, $170 billion they gave to ICE. What kind of health care could have been paid for? What kind of subsidies for health care could have been paid for with that? And we're expanding this private army of thugs with masked and tactical gear going around to American cities and beating and killing American citizens. So yes, that. What was the second part?
Top 3 legislative priorities.
I want to get money completely out of our federal elections, totally, completely. You can go to my website and see a complete plan for that. But that involves overturning Citizens United, controlling how PAC money is spent, and no donations, no private money to candidate campaigns. Grants, government grants, for which people like us would have to qualify. So that way, we taxpayers we're the ones who they're accountable to. Not Elon Musk, not corporations, nobody. They all get the same amount of money. If we can get that done, think about how fast we'll get universal health care done, or child care for all, or environmental protections, all the things we Democrats talk about for years and years and years and said we want. If we can get money out of our elections, I totally believe we're going to get there. Anything else?
No, if that's right.
Thank you.
Lucia. I will remind you, impeachment, abolishing ICE, and top 3 legislative priorities. You're going to have 3.5 minutes because you had 3.5 minutes, sir.
Thanks. Yes, I would support impeachment. I would support holding these rogues accountable for, in any way that we can. I think we have to be realistic about the situation of the next 2 years, which is that the Trump administration is in power. We will not have control over the Department of Justice, which we would need to fully implement a plan that you described. But I think that if we take the House, at least there are steps that can be taken that are important to do. In terms of abolishing ICE, as Rob mentioned, they got a huge budget increase. And people who join our ICE get many times more the average person's bonus. So I would take that money and I would put it into funding our asylum process. I would restore temporary protected status to make our immigration process work, to let people in that are vetted and that deserve to be here.
Top 3 legislative
3,
priorities.
aspirational or pragmatic?
What 3 legislative accomplishments are defining your campaign?
Okay.
What are you leading with?
Okay. One is healthcare. This is the moment. So many people are feeling the consequences of the system we have. Now is the moment to engage people in conversation. Now is the time to talk about Medicare for all. I really think we should be the party leading on that, and I think we can get something done. The second is we need to put back in place the things that the infrastructure bill and the IRA had for green energy and green industrial processes. This is a domestic competitiveness issue. We need to bring back manufacturing, and we need to do it in a clean way because that makes us an economic leader, and that makes the cost of goods affordable. So that is definitely a priority for me. And the third, I'm going to go out on a limb here, but what is important to me is science, because I think science underpins a lot of things that we talk about, and it is being cut out across the government. One place that it actually got cut out in the mid-90s was in Congress. Congress used to have a little agency that was nonpartisan, neutral, full of scientists and people that were informed about technology to help Congress people prepare for things like a pandemic or AI. In the absence of that, Congress people now rely on lobbyists to inform their decisions, so I would restore the scientific and technical capacity to Congress so that we have an informed policy-making body to protect us and make sure that we're regulating things appropriately.
Thank you, Lucia. Tracy?
Thank you for the question. With regards to impeachment, I actually, just in the last week, have been asked to and have joined a grassroots movement. Some of you may have heard of it. It's called Citizens Impeachment. They have, I am the 70th candidate that is now part of them, and the only one in Pennsylvania. And it is a group of congressional candidates. There's about 6 or 7 Senate candidates in there. And if you're not familiar with it, their number one item, obviously it's in their name, right, is that, and that's part of it, in us being part of this group, is to, on day one, to sign articles of impeachment. So, and I will be totally candid in that when I first met with them, and they had reached out to me, and they've been, contacting me for a little while, and we spoke, and we discussed this, and I said, I don't want to be performative, and I don't. I'm not going there to be performative. And we had a nice back and forth about it, and I realized what we were getting at, right? Which is Congress has a role. We have an obligation, right? And we're the body that brings the articles of impeachment. The Senate has their obligations and what they're supposed to do. If they choose not to do their responsibilities, that's on them. But in our discussions, I was like, you're right. It's not performative for me to sign that. That's actually my duty. That's what I should do. We have a constitution. My job as a lawmaker is to, enforce that. There's clearly violations, so I will be signing an article of impeachment. What the Senate does with it when it gets up there, that's their responsibility. And if they don't want to live up to their constitutional responsibility, that's on them. So yes, short answer there, obviously the longer answer is yes, I will be. With regards to ICE, we touched on this a little bit as well. My view on this is that, again, to Lucia's point, we control the purse string. Congress, lawmakers, we control the purse strings. I would rather control their funding and, quite frankly, execute laws that will constrain them. You have to be able to pass this. Me wanting to do it is fine, but it has to pass. So I'm about revising, the statute and regulations that control them, that let them operate. So in other words, giving them very specific, you are permitted to do this. You cannot go into a restaurant, a landscaping business, an immigration center, a church, a daycare center, right? That would be a shall not in the bill. You can't do it. And if you do it, here are the penalties, which would include the secretary of the DHS having to report to Congress and potentially have oversight over their decisions going forward if they violate it. But you can legislate them into compliance. And that would be my objective, is to legislate ICE into compliance, into being decent, law enforcement that do things the way they're supposed to. One of those things in the statute, no covering your face, right? Cannot have your face covered. We control the law on that. So I would want to control the law on that and make them comply with us. The beauty in that approach is that, one, it can get widespread support so you can actually get that bill passed. Because think about it, even the Republican's going to have to say, in order to vote against that bill, we'll have to say, no, I want to go into a daycare and take people out. I want to go into a restaurant and drag these people out to the back of that restaurant. I want to show up at an immigration center where somebody's trying to become a U.S. citizen and drag them out of there. If they can say that publicly and still get reelected, I'm not sure what district they're from, but I don't want to be anywhere near it. So that is my position with regards to abolishing ICE or not. That would be my approach to it. It's slightly different, but that's how I would approach it as a lawmaker.
We need a rapid fire
I'm sorry.
from you, Tracy, on your top three.
My top three?
legislative.
Okay, speed round. Top three, healthcare, reproductive rights, and veterans' rights. Those would be my top three.
Thank you. Ms. Laura Foster.
Hi, so part of my question was actually already answered because I was very much interested in campaign finance reform, but it's under the auspice of corruption and lack of trust in our government. I see the break in trust, and I see the high levels of corruption as perhaps the most difficult thing for our government to overcome in the upcoming years, if not decades. Having worked a little bit in developing countries, when there was a corrupt government, that trust and reestablishment of judicial process, of engaging in legislative actions that don't feel like that they're surreptitious, just gets blown out the door. So I'm curious where each of you stand on trying to address the high levels of corruption in our government, and specifically around campaign finance reform. Like, how are you going to ensure, what specific steps are you going to take so that the quid pro quo with big money is not what is being used to dictate how our government is run, and what you're doing with your own specific campaigns to make sure that you're transparent about what money is coming into your pockets. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Tracy, this one boomerangs right back to you.
All right. So there is a lot of corruption, and it has been really disheartening, to say the least. And I also agree with you in that this has been, and I don't mean this as a compliment, this has been one of the most consequential administrations, all for bad reasons, but it is very consequential. Some of this will take decades to recover from. There was so much institutional memory and history that has just been wiped out purposefully, and that's going to take a lot of work. With regards to how do you get some of the big money out of things, because that's what keeps a lot of these politicians in there and this establishment moving around. I believe one is campaign finance reform, and I would propose a number of measures on that in terms of And again, you have to keep that in mind with Citizens United, because that's sitting there as this big, really big, onerous thing that, again, not to be like a broken record, but the office that we're running for is lawmaker. And the Supreme Court's role is to interpret our law. I don't agree with how they interpreted Citizens United, but that was, they twisted themselves up and that was the reasoning they used. Again, the benefit that the lawmaker has is, okay, I know what that blueprint is now, so let me propose legislation that will close down these loopholes that you've used in Citizens United to allow all this dark money and big PAC money to come in. I think that's one of the best ways to do that, because all the Supreme Court's allowed to do is interpret the law as written. If you make it abundantly clear and black and white, it limits their ability to bastardize it like they did with Citizens United. So I believe that is a big weapon that we would have in our toolbox.
And Tracy, how are you ensuring transparency and going about fundraising in your own campaign?
Well, not to make light of it, but since the establishment party is, trying to suck up all the money, that's one way we've been able to limit our fundraising. Nothing but small donors. So at any rate, all kidding aside, we've pledged that in our literature, not taking corporate PAC money, knowing where the money's coming from. I can say that based on where we're at in our fundraising and what we've raised, it's all been small dollar individual donors. We have had people who have maxed out and things like that with the threshold of $3,500, but they came from individuals that we knew or somebody in our campaign was aware of. We don't have any anonymous numbers coming in, and I would like to keep it that way. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as we move forward, it'll always be that way.
Thank you, Tracy. Rob, we're going to get you up next.
So the question was about campaign financing.
Corruption and campaign finance reform, campaigning and fundraising, transparency in your own campaign.
Well, I did, already talk about my view on private money in our elections. If you remember one thing from me tonight, remember that. That is that money is the root of all evil that's poisoning our government against you and every tax-paying American, ensuring that you are not getting the benefit of the government that you deserve to get. Corruption in government, really, you don't have to look any further than Trump. The guy, this was a few months ago, he had some kind of event down in Mar-a-Lago or something, where he had, meet Donald Trump. If you're one of the top 25 buyers of his meme coin, you can meet Donald Trump and have a dinner with him. So he appeared there with a podium with his presidential seal to reward the people who bought the most of his meme coin. That is a president enriching himself by using his office. Nothing. Don't overthink it. That's what it is. And I don't know if that's impeachable. I'm going to look into it because I think it should be. There's also corruption with members of Congress trading stocks. It's ridiculous that people actually have their stock portfolios following Nancy Pelosi or somebody follow her exactly, and they're making out like bandits because they know that these people in Congress, they know things that we don't. They have kind of like an insider trading thing going on. Again, I'm going to tie it back to money in our elections. I believe if we have that, people will be able to control better the quality of character and integrity that gets elected to our government. Transparency in my own campaign. I'm totally, if I get to Congress, by the way, I'm going to be as transparent as hell. You won't even see me, you'll look right through me. But nobody's going to tell me something that I'm not going to share with the public. You better not tell me something that you don't want shared with the public. But as far as my campaign goes, I'm like Tracy. We're plodding along with our fundraising. We don't have a lot of money, but we're getting there. We're getting some momentum. I will say that we're having a celebrity coming to Bucks County to fundraise for us, someone who noticed us nationally, and hopefully when that happens, we'll be kind of flush. But for now, we're just moving along and raising money. We report our earnings to the FEC, like we're supposed to do, and everything's right there in front of everybody. We don't get any money from corporate tax or anything like that. I told our volunteers, no money like that, for our campaign.
Thank you. Lucia.
Thanks for bringing up the ban on congressional stock trading. That is a bill that Representative Fitzpatrick has sponsored, but has never put his political capital behind. But something that I think we would fight for. No corporate PAC money, no APAC money, no excuses. Full transparency right now. Yeah, we also plodding along, individual donations. In terms of once one is in Congress, I worked for a senator who made his #1 issue dark money and campaign finance. And he tied it into where we are now with the Supreme Court. He tied it into where we are now with climate change and many other issues that we can't make progress on because of the tentacles of dark money and the power that it has. And one thing that I learned from him is that also to avoid it from the inside, it takes being very informed yourself. It takes being curious and knowing and wanting to know what the legislation is that you're making and the information that's required to make decisions. And I admire him so much for that because he was just the most knowledgeable person that would be sending articles in the middle of the night because he was reading and reading to make sure that he was up to date to make the decision. So I think emulating that is really important for a policymaker. Some Congress people are staff-driven. They don't really make their decisions. They're not as informed about the process. They kind of just go along with it. So I think that's a really important thing. The last thing I would note is the average wealth of a congressperson is above $1 million. That is not representative democracy. So I come from a working family. My family lived for a time without health insurance. I know the fear that financial instability and the stress that it causes on families. I think more people that know the reality of the average person holding office and holding power would be very important as well. Thank you.
Next up, Manan Pandya. Apologies if I mispronounced. Please correct me.
No, you did wonderful. Yeah, high school was fun with that.
Not bad.
Hi all. First of all, thank you for running. I think it's very important. It seemed like there were candidates that thought that there was a runaway election of some sort, but it's glad to see that everyone is showing up for the community. My question, it seems like you can't turn the television on without hearing something about AI. And outside of affecting my job as a creative, I'm more curious in terms of all these data centers and just how that's going to affect our electricity bill, our daily engagement in terms of whether that's Pico or whatever that looks like. How do we ensure clean energy / some sort of protection for working families and non-AI companies?
Excellent. That's going to go to Lucia first. And I don't want to steal any thunder, but for those who don't know, there is an Amazon $20 million investment into Pennsylvania for AI and what are called innovation campuses to start everybody off on the same thing, to develop cloud computing and AI infrastructure. And I'll take it from there, and if we need to fill in any blanks, we will.
Thank you for that question. Data centers are front and center these days for important reasons. You did ask about regulating AI particularly, but I just want to say it's important. It's important because we also need to let our workforce catch up to what the future job landscape looks like. So regulation is critical. Privacy is critical. In terms of the data centers, we have one now coming to Bucks County. And the process by which that was decided is approved by the county. It was done, as I mentioned before, without the assessment frameworks in place to know what will happen to the ratepayer. The decision, the agreement that determined who bears the financial burden was made between PECO, the utility, and Amazon, the developer. Because this had to do with interstate transmission of electricity, it was approved by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC. That agency admitted, after it had to approve this deal, that it doesn't actually know how to do that. This is a new thing. It's not prepared to assess consumer protections yet. So I would say, let's put a little pause on this and figure out how to do it so that our electricity bills don't bear the burden. It also has huge impact on our environment and our well-being. Pennsylvania is 49th in clean energy build-out. That's practically last. We've pulled out of RGGI, the regional cap and trade program that regulated greenhouse gases. So now we are faced with more fracking and more natural gas. It's all the wrong order. We have to put the things in place first that enable data centers to come online in a responsible way for our communities. Even if that means we are giving up a short-term economic bump that might be very politically attractive. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Okay.
So I'm going to echo some of this from what Lucia was talking about. I mean, I would say that it appears that they've gotten the cart before the horse a little bit, right? That being said, you can see the attraction, right? It is an economic boon to the Commonwealth, but I think doing that without the proper, and I'm going to say oversight, because in some of my policy positions on this, I believe in some government oversight, we'll call it. It's also known as regulation, but some people get their back up about the word regulation of industries. But there are industries that I believe need some oversight, and this would be one. I think that with the just sheer amount of wealth that corporation has, and this isn't about penalizing the corporation. I know a lot of people are advocating for, let's just penalize these companies. I'm not talking about penalizing them, but to Lucia's point, we don't know the effects of some of this. So if you don't know the effects of it, you should err on the side of the people and the community and potentially the environmental impact and any number of these unknowns, these question marks. Hey, if they end up having to overpay, Amazon ends up having to overpay because we overestimated the impact of these things, then we'll work that out on the back end. But it seems to me that they've sort of done this the opposite way, which is gotten a deal that Amazon certainly can live with and PECO can certainly live with. And my guess is that we're going to pay the price for that, once this all shakes out and we see what the real damage is. That being said, I believe the power of AI in and of itself as a technology is going to be transformational in a lot of ways. Not all good, to your point, right? I think there's going to be jobs that are going to get lost. There's going to be retraining that's going to need to be done for certain folks so that they can transition into a different field because they don't have that anymore. But I do think it's a burgeoning technology that it's coming. So we need to figure out how to control it.
Thank you. Rob?
Regarding the data center here in Bucks County, or a data center being built anywhere, there has to be, regulations in place that basically say, Amazon, whoever, you want to build a data center here, you have to secure the power for that. Probably Lucia would like this. You got to put up, 500 solar panels on top of there and that windmill and everything and to generate that power. Ideally, that would be how we would do it. Do you like that? Yeah. So, and I don't know the feasibility of that, but yes, why don't we, for data centers, why don't we use environmentally sound green energy to power them? But if that's not enough, then the company itself has to secure its power without raising the rates on the people who live in the area. As Tracy said, PECO and Amazon like this deal. We'll see how it works out for the people who live in the area. No, that's got to happen first, right? We've got to start making that happen first. Regarding AI in general, I think Lucia or Tracy touched on it. I am very concerned about AI. I think it's a wonderful technology. I use it myself. But I am concerned that, people are going to lose jobs over this, and I'm not sure how we handle that as a country. People once said of Wayne Gretzky, why are you so great? And he said, well, I skate to where the puck's going to be, not where the puck is. But you got to start thinking about where the puck's going to be with AI, right? The Industrial Revolution transformed the United States from agriculture to working in factories and such. People got jobs. They lost their jobs in agriculture, they moved to that. And then you had computers and such. People moved from working in factories to maybe working with computers. I don't know with AI if there's going to be enough jobs now for people to cover this. We may finally have come to a point where we have to start thinking about things like that. People have proposed universal income or things like that. I just think in terms of, if people lose their jobs, who's going to buy the products produced by the companies using this AI? It just is not sustainable. And with that, I have to use the restroom, so I'll be right back. Continue.
We are at the end of the questions that were submitted. Thank you all so very much. I hope this was informative. I want to open the mic, of course, but if everybody wants to stand up, take a little stretch, just a quick 2-minute break. We're going to proceed with any open mic questions. I have some filler questions that have not been addressed that I would like to ask, and then we will wrap it up around 8:15. We will have a little bit of a candidate time if you want to see the candidates afterward and talk directly. Sign up for their lists. We are going to meet back here in 2 minutes. I know that's a little too fast, but we'll see. We'll get everybody back in.
I don't even know who else is. I know we're here. Yes. No, we've got 80 people. Oh, I thought you meant there were 8 people here that were watching. I will get some data out. We'll find out how
Thank you for thinking of it. I've fixed it to what you I know you cannot make it too much. Especially if you are in Philly. Yes. What was the topic? I didn't think that would happen. Somebody should run it.
So yeah, pretty good. I just think it's enough.
I was like trying to back to someone being like, because I couldn't do I wasn't saying anything in that chat.
Oh, okay. People were saying yes, people were saying things in the chat. I did go to it's very I probably do it. So yeah, so.
I remember that one.
when I'm literally eating the jar of skip tonight, I was like, I don't need to make a dinner.
Okay, everyone, if we can make our way back to our seats, we're going to spend probably just a few more minutes and wrap it up. I'm going to open the mic for questions and take a few. I mean, if we have to stay a little, we want to make sure everybody's questions get answered. Of course, as Tracy said, these are a lot of deep, very long questions, right? So, 3 minutes, 2 minutes doesn't cover it all. I think you can guarantee that you'll be seeing these faces and forms in the future, coming to a town near you, hopefully. Okay, I'm going to give everybody a chance to just get seated, and then we'll get to the questions. Who's first? Let's see, 1, 2, 3. I'm trying to make sure I get everybody fair and square. Rob, you're going to be first on this one. Sparky.
Hi, I'm Sparky Morris, and I am the chair of the Northampton Democrats, so I guess I'm an establishment Democrat. I thank you all for the breadth of your answers to the questions. I do thank you. I have to ask, if one of you, and I will work for whoever gets elected in the primary, if you get elected, and I have a second part of this, how are you going to beat Brian Fitzpatrick? He plays dirty, as the 4 trackers in this room, with 2 of them filming everything you're saying, and they're going to take it apart. And 2 years ago in 2024, I don't know if you remember, that TV ad that somebody was coming up from the border and they were going to murder you in the bed, that nasty TV ad that he had, it ran ad nauseum from August to November. One night I was watching TV for some reason for a long time. I counted 16 of them. So media is very expensive. So how are you going to win against Brian Fitzpatrick? That's my question.
Okay, thank you, Sparky. And we're going to start with Rob. And because we have a long line, I want to do 1 minute rapid on these. This is going to kill Tracy, but guess who's running this show?
I won't even stand up. So how will I beat Fitzpatrick? As I said earlier, if I win this campaign, this primary, it's going to be national news. And the Democratic, the DCCC will give me millions and millions of dollars to beat this guy. And I will I'll mention this real quickly. I believe I'm capable of beating Fitzpatrick because as a friend of mine described me on Facebook, I like to think of myself as a refined man, but he said Rob Strickler is the kind of brawler we need to beat Fitzpatrick and in Washington. I'm not a fighter, I'm a brawler. I mean, I believe we need more brawlers on the Democratic side, because certainly there are some on the Republican side. And I say, Michelle Obama, I love her. What she famously said, when they go low, we go high. I say, they're going to go low. Take them out at the knees. That's how I'm going to beat Brian Fitzpatrick. I'm going to be not dirty, but mean.
Thank you, Rob. Lucia.
Yeah, Representative Fitzpatrick is a very strong opponent, but this is also 2026, and I think that it takes a very concerted, consistent effort to point out his record and what he has not fought for, and I really think people are going to listen to that in this time more than other times. So I think learning how to communicate that and really being just very consistent about that message can chip away the veneer that he has built and has convinced so many people that he cares about them up and down this district. And I would say that I'm not a big dude, but I can pack the punch. So I am also ready to fight for what's right.
Thank you, Lucia.
As I said at the outset, I'm a former registered Republican. I'm now a registered Democrat. I've never been part of either of the establishments, never held office in either of the parties, and never thought I would. Brian cannot out-moderate me. Unless he's willing to change parties, he's not going to out-moderate me. So I'm going to take that lane from him. And as I've said in other town hall meetings, you know, he needs to be exposed. He is very slick with the way he's appeared to be very moderate, and he seems to, you know, work both sides. He's worked those 85,000 people to his advantage in 4 different re-elections. That's why the 85,000 are so critical. But what nobody is calling out is the stuff that he didn't do. On the bill, we knew he voted the wrong way on that, and then he voted no and it didn't matter. But nobody called him out for saying, why didn't you go on a single cable news network and call this bill out? If you thought this bill was so bad, every cable news network would have had it. He didn't go on one. He's the co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus, the co-chair of that. He's got supposedly other moderate Republicans. Not a single one he could convince how bad that bill was. He voted no. It was a terrible bill, wasn't it, Brian? But nobody else joined him on that. Those things need to be called out because those 85,000 people are listening. They're trying to figure out who can they resonate with, who can they gravitate to. He cannot out-moderate me.
Thank you very much. Next up.
Yep, thanks. Hi, I'm Joel Hoffman from Doylestown. Hypothetical. You succeed in beating the establishment candidate and becoming the Democratic candidate. You beat Brian Fitzpatrick. And when it's time to be seated in Congress, the House Speaker refuses to seat you. And there are 10,000 ICE agents and Proud Boys, I'm not sure there's a difference, circling the Capitol. What do you do?
This goes to Tracy. We're boomerang back to you, Tracy.
So you're saying Mike Johnson is, you know, he's still the speaker and he's not going to seat me, right? Okay. You know, I just finished talking about those cable news shows. I'm on every one of them, and I'm there nonstop. I'm staying at the Capitol. If they're coming in, they're coming in. Again, I'm the son of a command sergeant major who did 30 years in the 82nd Airborne. I'm not leaving, and so and I'm gonna amplify it in every which way I can. I think you have to be willing to expose what's going on, and I think there's too much establishment that doesn't want to expose this stuff.
Rob?
First of all, I'll say if we do win this district, flip this district, probably we will be in control of the House, but to answer your question, I don't know what else to do but just walk up there and say, I'm gonna be seated, guys. Step aside. I'm gonna walk into this building. And if you're gonna physically restrain me, there's gonna be consequences to that, especially when I am finally seated. There's going to be consequences to people who break the law. You are breaking the law. Just like the law was broke on J6, just like all these ICE agents, we have to have laws under our Constitution. I recognize that we have a president who blows his nose into the Constitution, but you have to stand firm and you have to be able to just look the Gorgon in the face and say, you're a goddamn Gorgon, get out of my way. I'm gonna go in here and do my job.
I don't know what a Gorgon is, but thanks for that.
It's
I'm
Medusa.
gonna use it.
Snake-haired woman.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. You learn something new every day. Lucia. Yeah. Lucia.
I would pitch a tent. I would stay there and I would have a party and I would invite a lot of people and we would just stay there and we would talk about it and we would have a peaceful time and we would broadcast it and I like camping, so I will stay there until they let me in.
There you go. Thank you very much. Brian, I would love to hear another question from you, but there's 4 people behind you who didn't get to ask yet. May I ask that you go to the end of the line, sir? Oh, I know. I'm such a bummer. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Yeah.
Laura, I live in Horsham. She's a good boss. I appreciate that. I actually have a couple of questions. I'm going to try to make them into one to see if we can make it as efficient as possible. So y'all have talked about really important issues that I fill into a little bit into like, hey, generic Democratic candidate that wins will be able to flip the House, change a lot of the national stuff that we've talked about. one of the questions as a member of the Horsham community is, what are issues that you all are tracking that are affected at the federal level and that a congressperson actually has impact, that are impacting us at the local level? Thinking, for example, Upper Makefield, situations with the RAB communities, PFAS, so many other things that are affecting us as we're right across the street from the base. That's one thing. The other thing is, you know, one of the biggest issues that we have in Congress is when we see the changes of Congress, is we go from having a senior member of Congress to having a freshman member of Congress, and that makes a huge political difference in power. So how do you see yourself being able to come into the board and to be able to do the things that you've all been talking about? You require negotiating to get at least 218 votes and 51 votes in the Senate. How do you see yourself as a consensus builder, as a group builder, to be able to pass that type? And then the last question that kind of fits into that is, what makes you different from any other, like why you versus you or Bob or me, that we all have democratic values, like why should we be voting for you in a primary?
That was a big question. So I'm gonna, and I appreciate you. I'm gonna cut that down to local issues. Name one local issue that you highlight for local, and why you. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. We want to go with Lucia first.
I really appreciate the environmental remediation question. What can Congress do? As you all know, EPA rolled back some of the PFAS regulations. Congress could legislate and make them adhere and force them to regulate it differently or otherwise. But also, there are things that Congress can fund, like the State Water Revolving Fund, that has grants for things like PFAS remediation. So there are multiple avenues to tap into existing programs and make sure that those programs are executed accordingly. The other thing is about being a freshman member. If someone's a senior member but isn't doing anything, then it doesn't matter. And that's what we have right now. Representative Fitzpatrick is a senior member. He has more or less his choice of committees, but he's not using his power for us. So if you replace it by someone that has to work their way up, I think they could still make a big difference and a bigger difference. Lastly, I guess in terms of differentiating candidates, I think there's many ways to be qualified for this job. I have the qualification of having worked on federal policy now for 7 years. I worked in the United States Senate. I'm a scientist by training, so I bring that perspective. But the perspective of also living here and living in Upper Bucks County, which is not a place that gets as much political attention. So I think I also bring a voice of people that aren't always heard.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, there was a number of clawbacks, right, pocket rescissions that the Trump administration has done, that pulled back a lot of funding that would find its way down to the state and local levels. They did it in a lot of ways, right? Environmental was one of them. There's also a lot with, as I mentioned, I'm part of the United Way of Bucks County's board of directors, and they've been impacted, as have a lot of food banks and community shelters and community service organizations through various clawbacks that have occurred. So I believe and that's something that as a congressman and a lawmaker, I would be able to have some impact on.
Differentiation of you with the other primary candidates.
Again, I've touched on this. I believe my experience in litigation, in working with townships and writing ordinances and statutes and regulations and enforcing them and interpreting them for elected officials gives me, I don't need somebody to explain it to me. I don't need somebody to give it to me. I can take a bold idea, and I don't need the establishment because I'm not going to be letting them guide me. And I can put forth these bold initiatives that hopefully when I get into Congress, I may be a junior congressman, but at the same time, if it's a good idea, and if it's something that has a wide swath of appeal, which I believe if you use some work ethic and some creativity and some objectivity, you can write statutes that you can get a number of, even colleagues that don't agree with you all the time, get them on board with the idea that that's a winning concept and we can get stuff done.
Rob, local issues and junior congressman.
Regarding local issues, I used to be a software product manager for a company that made software for nonprofits, helped them raise funds and run their businesses. I had clients who it was my job to make them happy, to make sure the software was functioning properly, and if they had an issue, to work with support and help them. That's the approach I'm going to take as a congressman. I'm going to see the constituents as clients, people who deserve my attention, people who, if they tell me there's an issue somewhere, I'm going to see to it that if I can help, I'm going to help. You know, it's a congressman's responsibility to look after people in the district in that way, and that's what I'm going to do. What was the other one?
Local issue.
Oh, talking about.
I'm sorry. Freshman congressman.
Freshman congressman.
How do you feel about that versus an established?
I think Lucia put it very well. What the hell is Brian Fitzpatrick doing with his power anyway? I mean, you know, he's been there 10 years, and what has he really done? I mean, he's done a few nice little things in the community. I'll give him that. But on the big things, he's fallen flat on his face. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, not just the Constitution, but the big bill, all this other stuff. And you know, we need people with integrity and character in there. I don't care what level you are at in Congress. The lowest freshman needs to have integrity and character and wants to follow the Constitution. That's part of it.
Thank you, Rob. No, that's it. You got it. That's what I knew.
What differentiation?
Differentiation. Yeah, sorry, my apologies. Thank you for the reminder.
Real quick, I believe everybody in this room could be running for Congress if you wanted to. There's nothing special about me. I read about the Constitution all the time. I go back and I read James Madison's writings about the Constitution because I want to understand it. You all can do this. You all can run for Congress if you decide to, if you wanted to, and I respect that. Maybe it's not for you. Honestly, it wasn't for me. Before this year, I didn't have any ambition for this. And I'll be honest with you, you talk about term limits, I'm not going to serve more than 3 terms. You know, I'm not going to be in Congress and I'm in my 70s. I'm going down there to change stuff. I'm not going down there to be a congressman. I'm going down there to enact what I believe are the policies that need to be enacted to course correct on this country and make it work for working class men and women.
Thank you. Now is the hard part of my job, right? Because we have 4 people in line. We must be broken down and out of this room by 8:45. Is that correct? Yes. So we're in a tough spot. So if we have questions, can we ask the question of the candidates? Someone who is here with the campaigns, please record the questions. We will answer as many as we can, but I will try to hold these 3 accountable to getting back to you. How about that? All right, go ahead.
Mine is really short and quick. I'm Jonathan. I'm from New Jersey, so I'm basically across the river. If you were able to save any museum ship, would you?
Say it again.
If you were able to save any museum ship from being scrapped or being
Any
sunken,
museum ship, okay.
Yes, including SS United States. Would
Okay.
you try and save them?
Oh, would you save any? Rob, you're first. We're around that.
I mean, I believe in preserving our history as best as we can. And I think that's important, but I also believe we have to balance that against the needs of people for health care, for all the other reasons as well. I mean, I do want to preserve our history. I think it's important. As I said, I read what James Madison wrote, and I'm concerned about that. But I tend to lean towards helping people before preserving such things. And hope maybe the private sector can help to preserve those things.
Do we have any differing opinions? Anybody want to take that question to a different level? Lucia?
I would say, to your point, it's important we learn from history, and sometimes having those visuals and those tangibles connects us to what has happened in the past. And I think that preserving the arts is so important to our society, and maybe we don't have to make a trade-off if we just tax the rich more.
There you go.
Again, as a military brat and somebody who spent a lot of my time on Fort Bragg, there's no museum ships there, but there is, I understand our military history has a value to it. I would like to see that more privately funded. I watch John Oliver a lot, and I just learned that we spend $100 million on presidential libraries. $100 million worth of governmental money goes into presidential libraries. So I would be in favor of siphoning that off to help museum ships.
You have grown up against the clock, y'all. We didn't even get to do someone asked the question. I would like for the last 3 people very quickly, if your campaigns are paying attention, record the questions and we will try and have them get back to you all. You can see them outside to give them your email. Go ahead and ask your questions so everyone can hear it, and then we'll move forward from there. It does not.
Hold that for me. We can just bend it down. There you go, sir.
It was brought up earlier at the beginning of the forum, but my question revolves around foreign policy. We had the operation on the 3rd, and we're weighing intervention in Iran potentially in the coming days. But one thing that you guys talk a lot about, the powers of Congress, and one of the things that Congress has is the ability to approve, wars and other such things. But in the past, regardless of administration, we've had instances where, especially in terms of time sensitivity, that the executive branch has gone unilaterally into operations, whether that be in Somalia, in Grenada, in Panama, or recently in.
So I want to get to your question. So I appreciate the history and we see where you're coming from. So what is the question that you would like the candidates to answer?
My question is regarding the recent raid in Venezuela. Had the Trump administration come to, assuming that you were elected in Congress at the time, had the Trump administration come to Congress and told them about Operation, whatever it's called, Absolute Resolve, or something along those lines, and had put it to a vote from the House and the Senate, would you have voted for it, assuming that the operation itself, the outcome doesn't change? We still get Maduro, his wife. We still do everything. That part doesn't change. But
Thank you so much.
But had the Trump administration
presented that properly to Congress,
would you have approved it?
Thank you. Thank you for that, and we will definitely ensure that someone gets back to you. Question, real quick, if you can, please. We're running up against it.
All good. My name is Josh Morris. I go to Council Rock South, and I'm only 17, and I'm voting in November for the first time. So my question is, I feel like I heard a lot about Fitzpatrick, but Bob Harvie seems to be the front runner and the establishment candidate. So I wanted to know, how are you going to work against him in the primary with all the money that he has? Because I know a lot of you, I think you especially, wants to keep money out of our elections. So how are you going to compete with him with all these big organizations who are endorsing him?
Thank you. Please make sure the campaigns have your email, and then we will get back to you on that. Brian, real quick, please.
Real quick. For all the candidates, what media sources do you consume, and what's the latest book that you're reading?
Ooh, media sources of books. All right, these are some good questions. I want to just wrap it up here real quick. We got to be out of here by 8:45, so we're going to need a little bit of help probably. Letitia up here has put together all of the audio and such for us. If you have feedback on this forum, if you would like to give us information, I'm going to be standing outside of the back doors for Letitia so she can wrap up. Is that okay? And then I'll take some notes for you on feedback. Is that fair? Okay, so that you can do your job. Thank you all for being so participatory in democracy. This is what it's going to take. It's going to take every single one of you. Don't leave here tonight without spreading the good word. It's on all of you to get your friends and family voting. Good night. Thank you.